He's Howard Eibach, a former copywriter and creative director and the author of 2 books on the creative brief.
And he's Henry Gomez, an ad agency strategist with 25 years of experience. And together, we're the Brief Brothers. We're having an ongoing conversation about creative briefs, briefing, and all things advertising. We're back, Henry, and today I thought we'd try something more nuts and bolts about the creative brief because, we've had some great guests on in the last few weeks, but let's get back to Creative Brief 101. I thought a great topic would be, what's the first question on your creative brief template? Now, I've always made a big deal about the fact that the template itself is not so important. It's how you answer the questions on the template. But let's be honest and face the fact that everybody starts with a template. So when I do my training, the first question that I like to ask is, what's the problem we're trying to solve? And when I say solve, I mean solve through communications, right? So what's the problem we're trying to solve with communications? Another way to ask this is, why are we advertising? What I found, a couple of things about this. Number one, I like to start here because if you can't figure out what the problem is, it's really hard to answer the other questions. Now, that begs the question, isn't the hardest question to answer the single-minded proposition? Well, a lot of people do say that. I think you have to work up to that question by answering a few others first. So let's start with, what's the problem we're trying to solve? And when I do the training, I find it interesting because the folks who are in my training often get stuck on that question because they can't seem to agree really what problem we're trying to solve. Is it about awareness? Is it about sales? And they get off into tangents that have nothing to do with the communication. So that's where I like to start. What are your thoughts on this?
So I've had an evolution over the years on that first question. When you brought up this topic to me offline, I immediately thought, yeah, that's a good topic, because I actually have made a change on what the first question of my briefs that I write is. I used to have, a standard, and I use like a Microsoft Word table, right? Where the question is there and there's a box to answer and you type in. But on the left, I have like a label for that question, like a short. So I used to say objective, and then the question was at the top. It said, what is the task? Or to your point, why are we advertising? And that was kind of a basic thing that I always used. And to me, the problem with it, and I started thinking about what my format was or my template was a lot more when I became the head of the department, because I wanted to standardize and have everybody using the same brief. I started thinking about it, and it was around the same time that I started thinking about Byron Sharp and all of these things, and whether a single-minded proposition was really what we needed to have, and all this stuff. And what I came up with was, if you ask, why are we advertising? You're coming in already with an assumption that we need to advertise. And I wanted to take a step back from that. So right now, my brief on the side, it says backstory. And then at the top, it says, what is the background of this assignment? And it's basically a place to say, our client, blah, 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 has been known for this products and now is coming into a new area, or basically to give some general context before we get into the specific of the advertising problem for that assignment, like to have a 20,000 foot view of the context. Very conversational, very high level, no jargon, but something as simple as that, like our client is known for producing really quality TVs, and now they're going to start making laptops. Okay, that's the background. Okay, so then
so is it short and to the point?
Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's a great, and I like what your thinking is here, Henry. But just for the sake of playing devil's advocate, I've seen examples of backstory that get to be paragraph after paragraph.
Yeah, no, I would have tried to avoid that, but I think the point of it was the brief itself should be like a story, And so
Right.
there has to be some sort of intro before, just like, bam, why are we advertising? And it's like, okay, what's going on? Who are the, what's the situation? What kingdom are we in? What, if you're
Right.
if you're telling a story, you have to have a little bit of that, and like any movie, you need to have a little bit of that, what's going on in the background till we get to, okay, now here's the challenge that faces our hero.
Right.
And how are we going to solve that? So
So,
that's where I'm at now, is to give a bit of backstory up front.
one of the things that I encounter, and I have to remind my trainees when I do the workshops, is that when we're looking at an example of a brief, and that's what I do, I show examples what I think are great briefs. I have to remind them that's like, this is entirely out of context. If we were truly doing a briefing, a kickoff for a meeting, first of all, you would have seen this brief long before the actual kickoff. And if we were in the kickoff, whether it's live or over a Zoom meeting, you're going to have a lot of other background materials. You're going to have depth of knowledge about the brand, unless, of course, it's brand new client, you're starting off from scratch. But in a live setting, your conference room is probably going to be papered with examples of previous advertising, maybe logos, maybe competitors' advertising. If they're really good, they might go out into the world and find a unique place to actually do the briefing. That's rather uncommon. So we have to remember that when we're studying a creative brief, regardless of what the first question is, it's always out of context. So I guess that leads to my question. I love the idea of background. How much do you just leave out of a brief and use as, let's have a conversation about the brand. Let's have a conversation about the context. Let's have a conversation about the current business situation, and keep your brief to 4, 5, 6 questions. And there's a lot of other stuff that goes on in the conversation. What's your balance there?
I mean, it's a judgment call. I don't want to put things in a brief, whether it be in a backstory section or in any part of the brief, that don't actually lead anywhere useful. But I think there is some backstory that, for most assignments, that will be useful, that helps you kind of, you have to also think about freelancers and people that are going to receive the briefs, secondhand, despite the fact that you as a strategist may not want them to receive it secondhand.
Right.
It can and frequently does happen. So it should be self-contained enough that somebody can look at it and follow it and say, oh, I get it. I get what they're. Is it going to be as good as getting an in-person briefing? Should it be done without an in-person briefing? No and no. But there should be those notes to yourself about what are the important things that are going on with the client or with the situation or with the target audience or whatever, that you put those little breadcrumbs there just to facilitate that discussion in the briefing.
Okay, just out of curiosity, what's your second question?
I'd have to open up.
Did I catch you up? My second question, while you're looking it up, my second question is, my first question is, what's the problem we're trying to solve? My second question is, what's the objective? Why are we communicating? So both of the answers to both of those questions, I like to emphasize, require the writer or writers of the brief, or writer in your case, but collaborative if it's, if we don't have a planner, to think about good verbs. You've heard me talk about verbs before. An objective might be to persuade or to romance or to seduce, but the problem might be to get them to change thinking or to something along those lines. So the first two questions, what's the problem? What's the objective? Will have similarities in their answers, I think.
So I had, so my first question, the way I word it is background on the side. And then the question is, what's the backstory for this assignment? And then the next question is objective on the side. And the question is, what can communications help us to do?
Okay, so we're aligned then. We both have the same second question.
Yeah. But I think it's important, that phrasing of what can communications help us to do, so that we start zoning in on the objective is an increased sales, right?
Right.
That's the outcome that we want. But the communication objective is, what do we need to do? We need to make people aware of something. We need to change their mind about something. We need to change their behavior. We need to change a misperception. We need to let them know that we exist. Those are communications. Those are things that a communication can help. And that's how I frame it that way.
Yeah, I like to ask the question when we're talking about how you answer that second question, why are we communicating? I say, who needs to know this? Is this about marketing? Is this about business? Or is this about what the creatives need to know? And it's so easy for the marketers who write the brief to forget this is not about the business objective. This is not about the marketing objective. This is about communication, what the communication, ad, email, whatever is trying to accomplish. And that also sets off a little like, yeah, I got to talk to the creatives. It's not about marketing. Because as you said, you and I both know the marketing objective for every product from now until the end of time: sell more. Right? That doesn't change.
Yeah, that's usually the point, right?
Right.
Sell more, increase share. Rarely do you get a brand that knows how to communicate a good communication objective.
Right. So you start with background and backstory. I start with what's the problem. I think they're both great ways to get into the brief.
Yep.
Good stuff, Henry.
Good stuff, Howard. Okay, so we're back for another creative review. It's been a while since we've done one of these because we've been having guests on. And you sent me a link for this Fisher-Price Chatterphone spot, and let's take a look at it, and we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, Howard, what do you think?
Well, first of all, let's acknowledge that this is a spot by Wyden and Kennedy, so they brought some creative firepower to this, and I tip my hat to them. It's really fun. It is poking fun a little bit at Apple for the way Apple introduces new technology. And it's clever as all get out. I just was captivated by it because I think I remember when I was a kid, I probably had one of these mobile phones. But it takes the iconic imagery of a brand that we know and love. And as you pointed out before we started recording, we probably just don't think about this brand all that much. It's in the background. And this is a great way to bring it back into the foreground. So, we can go back and forth on this, on some of the great elements, but my overall reaction is well done, very clever, great use of, tight close-up imagery. The wording, just no voiceover, just titles, great music. It's really well done. I give them a lot of credit. Good job.
Yeah, I think that the production value on it is like something you would expect from a high-end technology product. So it's that contrast of this, as it's revealed, this children's toy that we're all super familiar with. If we didn't have one, our kids had one, or we've seen it in the movies, like in Toy Story 3, for example. So to me, it's and you said it, it's going into the Christmas season. It's like a reminder of this classic toy and this classic brand that I got to believe that nobody has negative feelings about Fisher-Price. Like, it's probably one of those things that people and in playing in this way, it's very fun. But to me, what was more interesting even was this idea that they basically made a limited edition of this toy that has Bluetooth capability, so you could actually make a phone call on it, right? So and I can envision a lot of executives like buying this thing, setting it on their desk, and doing a Zoom call or something and using it, as for fun, and having it as a collector's item. So to me, the idea goes beyond the spot, right? It was the design of this limited edition replica of their classic toy, um, with an aim toward getting into the Christmas time conversation. So
Yeah. I
all
mean,
around, I think super smart.
yeah, I mean, another reason for billionaires to be hated because they buy up these products for conversation points on their desk, right?
Yeah. uh, and not just billionaires, but some
You know,
regular affluent people. You're going to spend some money on this thing, and they'll be on eBay, I'm sure, fetching quite a bit as soon as they sell out. But it's I just think it's clever all the way around, and it's a good a brand building effort, I think, on Fisher Price's behalf. So
yeah. So thumbs up for Wyden Kennedy and Fisher and Price. So good stuff, Henry.
good stuff, Howard.
He's Henry Gomez.
And he's Howard Eibach, and together we're the Brief Brothers. Till next time. Bye bye.